Okay. In a second. Nope. Mute. Yeah, if you're watching both, if you have Zoom and Twitch on at the same time, you've got to cut the volume on Twitch or you get this feedback that's crazy.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing you from my speaker. Is that a problem?
No, not for me.
Oh, not for me either.
Okay.
I don't have it on Twitch.
Oh, we're live. Look at that. Hey, good evening, people. This is Clint Imboden again of Art of the Resistance. And this evening I am talking to an amazing artist that I met through the political book that I'm in now. And Michael, I know you told me your last name once already, but I would completely destroy it. And you have such a great accent that I'll let you introduce yourself.
For everyone, it's D'Antuono, Michael D'Antuono.
There we go.
There you go.
So I met Michael through a book from a mutual friend of ours, Karen. Oh God, and I destroy her name. I'll just say Karen. And how long have you known Karen, Michael?
I think it was 2016. She invited me to a show in New York to participate. It was called "What's Right, What's Left: Democracy in America."
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's how I met her, and she's doing a great job with that book that we're in. I think that is that's either going to be, depending on how the election goes, an underground classic or a chronicle of the worst time in America's history. So either way, that's a book worth having.
Well, I hope that it's the latter of the two, but
amen.
You know, but yeah, I know she found me just Googling, she said.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, she's has been just a real amazing person.
Yeah.
I couldn't be any luckier than I fell into her, she fell into me. So, but now I spent probably a good half hour or so on your website earlier in the week, just bouncing around and seeing what's happening. And I'd like to start off with, and I'm assuming this is an older piece. None of your work had dates on it, so it's hard for me to kind of see what came first or some connections. I mean, what I'm talking about is voter fraud that in your racism group that had it just, I don't know, a little. I mean, because of it in your racism group, I assume that it predated all the stuff that's happening now.
Oh yeah, this was done in 2013, voter fraud.
Okay.
When the conservative Supreme Court gutted the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Right. Okay.
And the reasoning was that racism is over. So I don't know. Congratulations. I didn't know, but racism is over. Yay. I guess because we had a black president, they just used that as an excuse. And ever since then, they've been, the voter suppression in the neighborhoods of color has been tremendous. In Texas alone, it took about 3 days for them to change the voting rules.
No, I know. No. I'm getting to the point now that I hate to wake up because, the next morning, because there's some god awful, when RBG died, my wife came home and said, I have some bad news for you. And I thought, oh my God, a family member or something had, or Biden had died or something. Yeah. And then she told me that it was RBG and I went, oh, fuck.
I know. I got a text on my phone from Ron English. He said, Ruth died. And I'm thinking, oh man, is his mother-in-law, what's her name? But then it all came together, and yeah, that's really bad news.
Yeah, I mean, it just, the only thing that I can think of that he has left in his quiver is to start a war. I
Oh,
can't
that's
think
not
of
even
anything else that he's covered everything else already.
he. Well, that's a good point. I met Malcolm Nance about 3 years ago, and the first time first conversation, that's the first thing he said. That as soon he said as soon as those indictments come in the Mueller probe, we're going to have a war, and that he was convinced. He found another way around it, but
Yeah.
yeah, we thought that a long time ago. At this point, the facade of a democracy or playing by the rules, it's they're not even doing that. They're not even trying to act like they're not. It's a coup. It's basically been a very slow moving coup.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I knew months ago that I said, November, January is just going to be. I don't doubt seeing, some militias camped out on the grounds of the White House.
And bikers.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
all the
exactly.
good people. Yeah, and they have the guns. They're all the people with the guns. But I don't think he has the military.
Oh no, that's the only saving grace.
Well, that's a pretty
He's
big.
done so much stupid shit to them that they're not going to lift a finger for him.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I think saving us from, you know, bombing Iran or Korea or something is that the military just won't let him play with the football.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think he's going to. I personally, I don't think he's going to win. I think that there's too many things against him. I don't know how much I trust the election results, but we got to get out there and vote. Everything is all about the voting right now, and we have to win. We can't win by 51%. We have to win by about 75% at least, and
Yeah.
we have to get them counted. Um, and that's why that's everything I'm doing, and I'm sure you're doing, is about that at this point. People are coming to me out of the woodwork. Can you do this project? Can you do that project to get out the vote? Right? And so I am, as I mentioned to you earlier, I am doing that Democracy's Last Stand, which if you go to my website, which is above me, if you don't mind me saying this, I have interviews with some in-depth interviews and videos with Malcolm Nance, Ron English, Peter Yarrow, Peter Paul and Mary, Torrey, and Ellie Mistal, all from MSNBC. And they all talk about, about the dangers of this election not going our way and what we have to do about it. So I hope people will watch that.
Yeah.
And more than anything, I just hope they vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's it was real fun. I mean, I was looking at again, I saw it, and most of your work isn't happy work. I mean, there are a couple pieces
That,
that I mean, your the Beacon of Hope, the piece about Pete Seeger, and and a couple of environmental ones where some of the real the more I don't know uplifting. Maybe I don't know what
well,
it seems like
you're right.
that, and a lot of your stuff's from the victim's point of view, and these are kind of positive.
Well, Pete was a friend. Pete Seeger was a friend of mine,
Okay.
and my main inspiration, I would have to say. I mean, people think, oh, Rockwell, because I've been referred to as the Rockwell of the resistance, and I guess that makes sense. But Pete was the real more inspiring to me than anybody else, in his activism and his integrity. So I painted that for because of that relationship basically. As far as the environmental pieces, you mentioned independence
Yeah.
and
Winds of change. Yeah.
winds of change. Well, I mean, they're serious subjects,
Right.
but they're pretty pictures, and people are more drawn to pretty pictures. It's kind of depressing
I
to
know.
look at the problem so much. But I have other more inspiring paintings also. Those aren't the only ones. Like, for instance, It Stops with Cops. Now that piece looks like it's violent, and it's not a pretty picture. It doesn't make you feel good to look at it at first because it's showing violence against a black person. But it's really the solution, just like those environmental pieces.
Right.
It's called It Stops with Cops. And if you notice, the young cop is holding the baton of the older cop. So the good cop is stopping the bad cop, which is the simple solution. I mean, to the the race relations with the police, and the police say, oh, they don't respect us. Well, I don't know about you, but my father told me a long time ago, to get respect, you got to give respect, or at least don't kill people. Don't kill unarmed people.
Yeah.
So that's all they have to do, is just stop killing the black people, unarmed black people. And if they do, well, they should be held accountable. Nobody should be above the law.
No, absolutely right.
And I do want to say about inspiration, since you brought it up, and you'll probably be sorry you did, but my most inspirational piece is this. It's called What Makes America Great Again.
Right.
I don't think Trump ever explained what he thought made America great again, although I kind of think it might be racism. But for me, I think it's our diversity. The strength of our diversity is what made this great melting pot what it is. And so I think this piece is inspiring. As a matter of fact, they're putting up a billboard for the Biden campaign in Pennsylvania in the next week or two for this. So it must be pretty inspiring.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You need to. I'll look for it. I'll look for it on Instagram and around. That's gonna be pretty cool.
See, I'm not all doom and gloom,
Yeah.
mostly.
I know. Yeah, I know. Well, tell me a little about Adam and evolution.
Well, okay, that one there looks like it doesn't belong in my collection, right, or my
Right.
wheelhouse. It doesn't look political. It's funny.
It's funny. I mean, it would be political, but I think it would be political for a very narrow group. Maybe it would be funnier for a much bigger group than it would be political for a smaller group.
Well, the inspiration for that is that in the South, a lot of places that in schools, they're replacing science with creationism, you know,
Right.
and we're side by side, like, and I think that's a false equivalency. I mean, you want go to Catholic school or go to church if you want to know about creationism, but we need science, and we're going to create a whole generation, is my fear, of of people who don't believe in science or understand it. They're going to believe in fantasies, and and I don't think that's helpful in the long run. When it comes to climate change, or it comes to COVID, or anything else, there, there's a difference between science and religion, and I think there's a place for each.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
the separation of church and state, I mean, it shouldn't be taught in public schools. Creationism. That's
Yeah.
my opinion, and that's the basis of that painting.
Yeah. No, I completely can see that. So do you do any other type of work, or is your work once from 2013, everything's been political since then, or
From 2009, on Obama's 100th day in office,
okay.
I did my first, I guess, political piece.
Okay.
Yeah, and quite by accident. And what happened was, well, let me see. Do I have that piece here? Yes, I do. What a coincidence. Okay, it's called
Okay.
The Truth. And in 2009, on his 100th day in office, I was going to have an installation in the park in the city, in Union Square, and have people come into a mock voting booth and say how they interpret that painting, The Truth. But I was met with Fox News got a hold of it. They took the religious right, and they got them all upset because, well, they interpreted that I'm comparing a black man, God forbid, to Jesus, and that just made them crazy. I got thousands of emails. I had death threats. It was so bad. My wife said, You're canceling this," and I didn't want to. That was not the point of the painting.
Right.
The point of the painting is the truth. What's the truth? You hear one thing about Obama on Fox News and another thing on MSNBC. So what is the truth? The truth, there's only one truth in reality, but it's so distorted through our lens, our political lens, and everything that's ever happened to us takes that truth and sees it a certain way in a certain distortion. And that was the point of the painting, but that's not how Fox News, promoted it. And so I did cancel the show, and I had it. But Mark Maron, he had me unveil it on his show on that day anyway, so it wasn't a total loss,
No.
although he wasn't the star he is today. But still, that was wonderful, and I thank him for that. So it just showed the hypocrisy of the religious right. To me, is amazing. I mean, one woman, she asked me, well, she wrote to me, and she said, "I hope that you get arthritis in both your hands and can't paint anymore." Signed, a loving Christian. So they see no irony in that, and it doesn't surprise me that, I mean, pro-life. They're not pro-life. They're pro-birth. After birth, you're on your own,
Exactly.
right? And so I can't stand the hypocrisy. I mean, they're sanctimonious hypocrites. Look at Jerry Falwell. Now, I couldn't care less what he and his wife want to do. If they want to have a threesome or a foursome, that's their business. I don't judge them on that. But he has no right to judge anybody else on any kind of moral level. And that's the thing that gets me.
Hmm. Yeah. No.
And these are the guys who are supporting the most immoral human being that any of us can think of: a rapist, a racist, just criminally insane. Donald Trump. How do you support that man? You
No.
can't be moral if you do that, in my opinion.
I sure don't. I sure don't see it. I mean, I just can't imagine believing, a word that that comes out of his mouth. No, he doesn't. I mean, I have a 35-year of work in mental health before I was able to take and do my art full time. And I mean, he's just a classic narcissist. I mean, he's no, I mean,
Oh, you look up narcissist in the dictionary, it's got his picture in it, I think.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there's another piece that has some humor in it. It's called Small Government. And I mean, the rich, well, the rich corporations, they don't want government any more than criminals want, prisons. But the humor in it is that not only is the is the Capitol building in his pocket, as the politicians are, but it's also kind of getting them a little excited. It looks like.
Yeah. And
Like,
you only can be a little excited.
it could be a little. No, that's all they got. That's it.
But yeah, I mean, so what did you do before? I mean, before you got that inspiration on 100th day of Obama, what were you doing before?
I was in advertising.
Oh,
Yeah, I was an illustrator. I was an art director. I made commercials. I did Fix It and Forget It was my big campaign for denture cream.
yeah.
And yeah, so eventually, I couldn't, I hurt myself, actually injured myself, and I couldn't work as an illustrator anymore. And so I sold the big house, and I moved to the country and said, all right, well, I'm too young to retire. What am I going to do? So I'll paint. And I never really, I went to art school. I went to Parsons in the city and in Paris, but I took illustration. I never really learned to paint, but I did have a box of paints from like 20 years before, 30 years before. I opened up the old paint box and I started to paint things, see if I could paint. It didn't hurt my arm, so it was okay. I could do it. And I started painting just people I like, what the heck. And then I painted Obama. Somebody told me to paint Obama, my mother, and I did, but I guess I went a little overboard with that. And that's how I started. That's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've always had a very short fuse when it comes to injustice. I always was like that, and it really bothers me. Low tolerance.
Yeah, no, I mean yeah, I mean that I spent my whole career in community mental health, drug addicts, homeless, rapists, you know,
Oh, so
That
you met Donald Trump?
yeah, I
No.
would have if I was in New York. Well, he wouldn't. Yeah,
How do you explain then? I mean, from your background, I'm very curious. How do you explain the mass hypnosis, the cult phenomenon of people who follow him no matter what? How do you explain that for me from your background?
I just think that they were have felt so disenfranchised or so hated, I guess would be, for so long that you hear someone singing your favorite song, you just, basically go sing along. I mean, I think that it's just, I mean, we've all known people that we wouldn't be surprised were supporters of Trump throughout our whole lives. I mean, you've not,
Mm.
and they and and that was a very and there's still a very small part. I think that it's the social media gives it, the good thing is giving voices to everybody. The bad thing is giving voices to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, I think that none of this would happen if there were no Fox News. You remember when we were young? Well, let's just remember being young for a minute. That's fun by itself.
Yeah.
But back in the old days in black and white, it used to be that the TV news, the networks had to give what, a half hour, an hour a day of news as a public service. And it's not about, it wasn't commercial, it wasn't about ratings, it was a
Yeah.
duty. And they told the truth. And there were three networks, and we were
Yeah.
all on the same page getting the same news.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I grew up. I remember watching. Grew up in the Midwest. Well, yeah, we watched we watched CBS
Hmm.
and for a half hour from 5:30 to 6, and then we ate. You
Yeah.
know, that was it. That was my dad came home and they watched the news, and my parents are a fairly social conservative at the time.
Uh-huh.
They'd be rolling over in their grave if
Yeah.
they knew me now, but I mean, and I remember that, Walter Cronkite and then
Yeah.
Dan Rathers and all of that. I would never have thought that any of them were not telling the truth or massaging the numbers.
And there was equal time for everything.
Yeah,
Uh, I think it was during the Reagan administration when they changed that, and that was the beginning of the end. And the other big nail in the coffin of democracy, I would say, would have been that 2010 Supreme Court decision on Citizens United.
yeah.
You know,
No, that just opened the floodgates,
yeah,
and that's got to be. I mean, that's got to be something that needs to be dealt with sooner than later after the new administration is sworn in. I just, I mean, I really, my first choice for president would have been, Elizabeth Warren.
yeah,
That's who I just loved. I, I, I started following her when she was in the consumer protection agency that
right.
Obama started and put her in charge of.
Hmm.
But my only consolation now is she will make an amazing attorney general. It's gonna kick ass. I
Yeah,
mean, these idiots, I guess, if you have a ton of money in New York and you can buy whatever you want and silence whoever you want, you think that it's that way everywhere. And I honestly don't think, well, honestly, I heard somewhere that he didn't think he was gonna win anyway. It was just a PR stunt for his
yeah.
brand.
Well,
You
that's
know,
what Michael Cohen said.
you know, but and I honestly think that he thought the president of the United States was just a game, you know, that it's just his figurehead, and he could go out and do his golf, and he could stay at his hotels, and
Yeah.
that was all that he needed to do. Show up once in a while and make a funny joke or whatever, and that was enough. He had no comprehension of the federal government. I mean, the enormity of
He
it, the
still doesn't,
complexity
except for
of it.
how we could use it.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I think we're part of it. We're lucky is he's so stupid.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If
Because
he
everything
gets sued,
ends up in court, and at least 80 to 90% of the time, it's all thrown out. He says he's just bizarre things, and expects everybody to jump and to change the law to to accommodate him. I think he is going to spend the rest of his life in court,
oh, I think he's going to. Well, if he
at
loses,
least in court.
hey, there's about a 50-50 chance that, I mean, he's got Barr in there. If he gets, and he will get another Supreme Court justice in, he's got all the power. He's got everybody in their positions of power. And especially with this election, when he gets that other Supreme Court justice, that's three people he put in. He's thinking, I'm gonna, I'm gonna contest it no matter what the numbers are, and and my
He,
buddies in the Supreme Court will take care of me.
but I think he thinks that, I mean, look at Roberts, look at some, Kavanaugh hasn't exact, I think he's voted on a couple things that would have been different, not what
Yeah,
Donnie uh would have wanted. I think, again, he's under this illusion that he puts these people who are his lieutenants, and they think that they're gonna, screw the Constitution just because he wants them to. And I think he's going to be, you know come to a really hard lesson
I hope. I
with
I hope it's like the Nazi hunters, in the 70s and all that. Every one of those guys, Barr and Lindsey Graham, I hope they all go to hiding in Argentina, because if we catch them, we're going to put them in prison,
yeah,
for their crimes against humanity.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, we could just rag on about him for, what else do we want to talk about other
Oh,
than
I don't know. Is,
anything?
is anything else in anybody else's consciousness other than that? We could
No,
talk about art. You remember Art?
I know,
He lives down the street from me, Art. Dad jokes.
yeah, I mean, no, I mean, it's just, okay, what are you going to do in January if we survive as a country through then, and he becomes this asterisk? um what are you going to start what are you going to I mean, there still are a lot of things that I mean, the environment and racism and a lot of these global things will still all be around. So I would
Yes,
assume that those are the kind of directions that
we
that
could.
that, that you're going to take.
Well, I just want to sit home and paint roses for about a year. I Ron said, we know, my friend Ryan said, I know that we'll all know what the world is okay when D'Antuono is painting roses. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That I hope we have that. I hope we have that situation. I'm concerned. I'm concerned. There's no
I
guarantee. But
I'm very concerned.
we might be meeting in a gulag somewhere. We might have cells next to each other.
No, I think if there is not any bloodshed between the election and the inauguration, I'll be surprised. I'll be shocked.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
They're just these idiots out there that, you know, these boys with their big guns, and nothing else. And
Well, you weren't doing art for 35 years, you said, and I was. Well, I was.
well, I started in photography.
Uh-huh.
In high school, I was into architecture. And then for a very short period of time at the end of college and the end of high school and the beginning of college, I found the Lord. And it was growing up.
Jack Lord.
Well, the Jesus freak Lord,
Ah, okay.
and it was, and the minute I got to college, got away from home,
Mhm.
that all it all changed. But I was wanting to go into architecture. I was had gotten awards in high school. We had an amazing industrial arts building. I mean, that's, back when we were in school is when they taught stuff like that. I mean, we had auto mechanics and woodwork and metal shop.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean,
Well, they don't even have school now. I mean,
no, I know, yeah, you couldn't, but and then in architecture, and then after that, my first girlfriend in college was in psychology, and so I said, oh shit, I need to take a psychology class because I don't want to sound like an idiot when I'm talking to her.
oh yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was this light went off, and because I never ever saw myself being somewhere on Sunday morning pounding a book. I saw working with kids
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and or youth. And then when I went with psychology, it went, oh, hey, I can do that with secular, and I don't have to, and it doesn't have to be connected with the church, and that's all, and that's where that came from. I mean, the population I've always worked with have always been really difficult because I guess and this is going to really sound really kind of sappy or self-serving, but I take Kennedy's, and I'm going to bastardize the quote, but it's like, if you're given a lot is expected. And my dad was a banker. My mom was a housewife. We had me and my sister, and I grew up very well in this very kind of bubble in the Midwest. And once I got to know other than white, Saxon males, then I realized that there was all these group, and I always have learned from the people from the people I have always worked with. I mean, I can tell just amazing stories of adult sex offenders that I worked with that used to just jump on each other and not give each other an inch in trying to getting around not telling the truth. And it was amazing. It was great. Or runaway kids, or drug addicts, or the chronically mentally ill. I mean, it's just always have been, I never could see myself doing therapy with bored
Yeah,
housewives,
yeah, yeah. Wow.
in the suburbs somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That just never was that. And so I think the art, I never could paint. I never could draw. I never could match what I saw in my mind
Mm-hmm.
on paper. And so the camera became the perfect medium because it that evaporated. I could catch what I saw and how I interpreted. I loved the dark room. I mean, photography. I mean, I can remember more about the first roll of black and white film I developed than the first woman that I ever had sex with.
Wow.
I mean, right now I can
You
remember
had sex with her. You
back in
had sex.
78 when 77, 78 when I did the first roll of film. And I know right now exactly what's all on it.
Well, maybe if you had sex with that woman in the dark room, you would remember it better.
Yeah, that might have worked, but I mean, and so the photography was always urban landscapes, insides of beat up buildings, and texture like that.
Mhm.
And my parents were always real big antique people, just obsessive about certain things. And I think, and that's where I blame on my collecting and photography. Right when it was starting to get digital, I
Yeah.
just lost complete interest in
Oh,
it because
really?
something spitted out on a printer, is it the same as really massaging something in the dark room to get that perfect print, and not spending 10 hours in Photoshop blocking out every speck.
Ah, but
I think,
Photoshop, you could create the surreal in Photoshop. Your imagination could take you anywhere, and you don't have to know how to draw.
yeah, I know, but for me it was too easy.
Uh,
And then the connect, and I started adding beginning with found images with my images and then overlaying text on my images. And then the images got less and less, and all the other stuff got more and more. And then it just went to, assemblage. I mean, I have boxes and storage sheds and stuff with just, I go to the flea market 5 to 7 days a week.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love that stuff. I paint, but I did a film on racism. I just stumble into these things, and I did a film with Cory Booker was in it and Van Jones and a lot of people, and it was pretty good. It was a lot of work, and I don't want to do that again. But what I really like to do is not paint so much. Yeah, I could paint, you could paint, but like sometimes I even have one here where you have a. There you go. On that piece there, it's called what the hell? Oh, it's called Progress with a question mark.
Right.
And the painting's the painting, but if you look, you can't really tell. But that frame, I had so much fun making the frame. I got like the Halloween chains that are light, right? And then I took the wood, I bashed it to death, and that was more fun and more rewarding for me than the painting. Maybe because it's not what you usually do, and you can do, but it's something new and physical with your hands that you could do. That's how you feel with the right. I mean,
Yeah, and I think that's it, because I think that, and I've worked on, this is a third house that I've at least partially rebuilt, because I loved working with my hands and I use my head during the day.
yeah,
So I've always loved working with my hands. I can look at a tool that I've never seen before and figure out, how to use it within a couple of minutes, or what will work and what won't.
and to appropriate something and use it for something else. If you go to Home Depot, and don't go to Home Depot because that guy's a Trumpy, but you go to Lowe's and you go in and you see all these weird, things, and you use it as something else, right? That's fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember growing up and going in St. Louis and growing to, I was just thinking about this the other day, a real hardware store.
Yeah.
With the guys with the ties and the big ladder and having to go up and get a bolt out of some little way up top somewhere, and the people talking and just shooting the shit.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing. It was amazing place.
I used to be intimidated by those guys when I was young, because they knew what they were doing, and yeah, that's fun stuff.
Yeah, there and they kind of come, but there's still kind of a smaller chain of just neighborhood Paganos is a hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I always go if I need something weird, or I just need to look at stuff to figure a problem out, because they have a whole aisle of just little boxes of and then the cabinets of all the stuff. So I can think, well, if I need one screw, I'm not going to go to Home Depot because they won't have it. No. None of the big commercial houses will have it, but this place have it. I always look there, and now on the internet, it's a lot easier to find odd stuff.
Yeah,
a lot easier.
Flea markets, the creation. I made a Trump, like a sculpture of a Trump. I actually made the head. It was my only sculpture I ever did, and it looks like him. It's pretty good. And I bought a mannequin of a boy, because he actually it's pretty much this guy is in 3D, and I bought a bunch of dolls and put them in a cage, and I made fake Russian money, and that was fun.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it anywhere because of COVID, so it was a waste of time, kind of. But what are you going to do?
Well, you'll do it again.
How does your past work, in what you used to do, how do you use that into your art? How do you incorporate it?
I think that, for one thing, the types of groups that I always worked with, I never very rarely got closure. I would see somebody one time or two times, or in a crisis, and never know what would happen to them. Mm-hmm. That's where the photography fit that because I could see a beginning, a process,
Hmm.
and an end product. I could be involved with the whole stuff, not just, you know, you know, half hour talking to somebody or dealing with somebody and then never ever seeing them again. And that was okay because that was, I didn't have any issues. I didn't need a lot of closure. But
Right.
then the art ended up being more of the closure. I think one of the first pieces that I did with found objects was these were mug shots from Folsom back in the 20s. And
Wow.
I found them at this big flea market in Texas. And I just and the looks, and they were still on the original black photo pages, and the
Yeah.
person had just cut them, and so there was a set of images on both the front and the back,
Yeah.
but you just went through it, and I said I had no idea at the time how I would use them, but the faces and all that would just really excited me. And then I went crawling around alleys, saw a lot of metal industrial doors, and they have really strong slats going this way. And I said, hey, I'll flip them sideways so they look like bars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll incorporate one of my images with that.
Yeah.
And then installation that just looked like a bit, and that was really when the first time when I crossed more of my day job into my night job.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, also when you're working as an artist, it's amazing. Like I'm a people person, I guess, but I could spend my whole life in the studio because when you're creating, time doesn't stops. I mean, right? You spend
Absolutely.
all day and it's nighttime. What I do, right? Does that happen with you too?
Yeah, and I think, and just even just time, just spending time, just letting my mind wander. I think that's one of the advantages of maybe our age is that, we have all these experiences that we don't remember that
Yeah,
that still are bouncing around in our heads
yeah,
and
they come out.
still impacting us today, even though we have no idea. And so I think and that's the flea market to me, is just spending hours just walking around. I know a bunch of the regulars, and and a bunch of them save stuff for me that I'm collecting and stuff. And so I shoot the shit with them and just, it's the object that says, take me home, and I say, okay.
Yeah.
And and stuff may sit in my studio for years, and something may not ever even get used,
Yeah.
but then something will talk to each other, and I said, oh yeah, this would work with that object, and that'll work with that, and all of a sudden, it's there.
I go to a big giant flea market with Ron, and you know who Ron is, I guess, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so he doesn't use Photoshop. Everything he creates, what he paints in 3D, he makes all these figures. So we go to the flea markets, and he'll pick up such crazy stuff. And I say, "What are you going to use that for?" He says, "I don't know yet, but I will someday." He picked
Yeah.
up a giant, this big Dean Martin head. A big head Martin. I can't wait. And a big airplane, and he hasn't used it yet, but someday it'll be in the painting, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah, no, I have a couple practice bombs that are 3-4 feet tall that I found at the flea market. A estate sale actually at a house when before we moved into this house, where I was showing my soon-to-be mother-in-law the house, and there was an estate sale down the block, and so we went down, and it was the end of the day, and it was a couple of family members, and it was a human skull sitting on a table in the living room. I said, oh, you know, how much is this? Says, well, we were asking 300 for it, but I'll give it to you for 150. My dad was, and they went into this long story. Their father was the first black dentist in Oakland, and this was his head from dental school.
Wow.
And so, and And my wife's mother looked at me and goes, "What are you going to do with the skull?" I said, "I don't know." I kept it for a while. I didn't do anything. I wasn't going to display it. But then I turned it around. I turned around on eBay and sold it and made $1,000. And
So as a former psychologist, right? Is that right?
yeah,
Okay. Your professional opinion: are artists weird?
the good ones are.
If you're doing it right.
Yeah. No, if you're doing it right, I mean, with my photography, I saw, I knew photographers that, would make these huge, beautiful Dallas skylines and sell the hell out of them at some art fair and whatever. And I'd have all my beautiful black and whites, get lots of conversations, but it wouldn't sell hardly anything. But that wasn't my reason. And I had no interest in making something that wasn't good for me first. And I would assume that you're exactly the same. Nothing gets out of the house without you finishing it or you being happy with it.
Right. That's true. That's true. I was going under the assumption if you do what you love, the rest will follow. I'm waiting.
Yeah, yeah. But it's but because there's a need for our kind of art. I've never, I mean, I've never liked, you said earlier, pretty pictures.
Mhm.
I'd never buy a picture of a rose or whatever, in my life. Abstracts, most of 90% of them just leave me flat.
Mhm.
I need something that's going to talk back to me, that's going to make me think, maybe even uncomfortable. I mean, I have had some work that I was dealing with a letter that a daughter had sent to her father who sexually abused her.
Mm.
And the father gave me the letter, and I turned it into an art piece about sexual abuse. And I was at this photography conference in Houston, and was talking with a curator that I'm really good friends with, in her room with a whole bunch of others. And this girl just lit into me like I was the devil. And if I hadn't been,
You're the messenger.
psychology definitely kicked in, I would have been really offended. I said, "Wow, something really, she's really projecting a lot of stuff." And by the end of the week, we were friends. And and I don't take honest, real criticism. I think that makes us better.
Oh, absolutely.
If I had someone always coming up to me and saying, "Oh, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're perfect, perfect,"
You don't grow from that.
I'd be sick and I wouldn't be an artist anymore. That's one thing I really miss about the spring, was this art fair that I was going to show all the Trump work with, was talking to people, because I don't sell a hell of a lot of work, but I have some amazing conversations with people.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is I'll have somebody
I
come
hope
into
this is one of
come into
them.
my booth, some young punk, and have an amazing conversation
Mm,
about,
yeah.
about something that I would have never thought would ever be bouncing around in his head.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because that's exactly what's how I feel. That's been my experience. I have met, I mean, you've seen the people I met. You
Yeah.
say a lot of pictures. I have met so many people, all of them smarter than me. Every
Oh yeah.
and with very expansive worldviews, have been everywhere, done everything. I've had a very safe uh, life. I mean, pretty standard relatively to the people I've met, who've been shot at, who've met presidents and kings, and been homeless at the same time. I mean, and to listen to their stories, it's just it made it all worth it, all the work.
Hmm.
That's interesting that you think so too.
No, I mean, I guess that's it. It. I guess my through talking with people, I'm still doing therapy. The art is the door opener, and my whole goal is just for them to get off register. You'd know that as illustrated, just and publishing just off register, that they start thinking a little differently.
Oh yeah.
Not everything lines up perfectly, and then that goes, well, gee, what does that do? Why is that there? And then and then the light bulb pops some of the times, and so
Well, with my paintings, I found it interesting. People will go to a show, they'll like them, they'll like the paintings, or not even think much of them, right? But then somebody will put it in their head, Fox News or somebody, that was bad. You should hate that. And all of a sudden, that influences their whole perspective on the piece.
yeah,
So they're not thinking for themselves objectively. They're being told and guided in which direction to think.
right,
And when the whole idea of the piece is to make people think for themselves, to inspire critical thinking on their own.
yeah.
It's
No, I love the Kamala piece that's behind you again. Another of a real positive one. But
every 20 paintings that I do a positive one.
okay, good.
Just so I don't commit suicide.
Now is that I would assume that's a relatively new piece.
Oh yeah, obviously it's a very new. Yeah, it was sent to the campaign. I haven't heard back from them yet, but let's see.
Yeah, no, I could see.
I'm selling posters and yard signs, and it's very
I
popular.
saw that on your website. Yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
she's been
So
working out, obviously.
yeah, yeah,
It's interesting because if Rosie the Riveter was the symbol of the strength of women, during a time when there was fascism.
right.
Fascism was across the ocean, of course. Now it's here. But here again, we have a woman fighting fascism and as a symbol. I find that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean yeah. Well, we have about 8 minutes left.
Oh, I'm only good for about 6.
I mean, like a majority. I mean, Karen, we could have talked for 3 or 4 hours on here, and almost everybody that I've had the pleasure of talking with, we could just talk for hours and talk about a lot of other, other stuff.
Well,
But
how come? What led you to do this series of?
well, part of it was Trump. Was that I was doing all this work, and I said I was ignorant of you or anybody else in the country that was doing similar work.
All right, I
And
know
so
the feeling.
I have a handful of local friends that do just amazing, interesting political work. And I said, I've got to do something other than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so, I was, it's legal in California, and I was out on the deck smoking some pot one night, and I go, Artists of the Resistance. That sounds like a perfect name. And then I started playing with it, and then I have a guy that does a lot of illustration stuff for me
Mhm.
that I used for my laser engraving, and we played around with it and did that just because I needed to do something beyond my single voice
Yeah.
was what was this. And then the site just started right when all hell broke loose back in February and March. And so
Well, hell broke loose then. Oh yeah, that's right. The
oh
COVID.
yeah, our cold, our
Okay,
little
'cause it just
cold.
keeps getting worse, and it's hard to know when it started. I think it started in 2016, personally, but
Yes. But and so that just kind of took the wind out of any kind of doing anything or promoting it at fairs or whatever that I
yeah,
that
you
I
can't
that I
do
was going
that.
to do. And so Katie, my assistant, who's in the back with Julian, who's her husband, said, "Why don't you do? We're starting to do on Twitch." And I said, "What's Twitch?" and she explained that, it started with gamers, and then a bunch of drag queens took it over, and then a bunch of artists started coming in. And so and Julian wanted to start a channel. I said, no way am I going to do this. And then she kept badgering me and badgering me. And I said, okay, fine. I'll talk to a couple friends, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we're getting through, the friends. And then Katie knew a bunch of people, a feminist artists that were really great. And then Karen blew in, and, I went through her book and looked at all the artists that I really, really thought were saying something, and said, then you're the first out of the book. And that was just, a treasure trove.
Yeah, I can see that.
Of people of like mind. So and it's gotten a little more fun. I guess the people again have just been, there's been, I won't talk about anybody else I've interviewed, but some interviews go better than others. It's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've been trying to do this every Wednesday. I can't remember if this is probably our 9th or 10th, maybe. I don't know how many episodes we've done, but
you're my age and you can't remember.
Yeah, no, there wasn't an interview before you, so you're the
right. I'm your first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when you were talking to those other people, you were thinking of me.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
I just didn't know you were there.
That's sometimes I'm not sure.
But it's just, this is just kind of has gotten to a point where it's kind of really fun. And then a couple of the people that I've interviewed are in the process now of doing their own channel, or doing something with Julian. A really good friend does a small art fair. And so that, it was supposed to be in spring, and next time it happens, Julian's going to do, have live stuff from the art fair during all its opening hours. And so, I felt really cool, because that was, oh yeah, hey Ray, you could do this and that and that. And then they followed through. There's just so much, out there that we can do for self promo.
Yeah.
And get the word out. This goes on to, then we AOR has a YouTube channel. You'll get, and Katie will put that up in a couple days. You'll be able to, get a copy of it and do whatever you want with it. And and then it goes. It's a half hour, an hour and a half out of my week to do some of the research, because I really, the first one goes, oh, I know it's a friend. I don't have to write down 5 questions. I know exactly what we're going to talk about. And after about 10 minutes, it was like, well, Ray, what do we, what do we do now? And then because I didn't do my homework.
Yeah.
And so, and that's been really exciting, because I get to meet a lot of artists that I've never been exposed to your work before. And I don't know if I would ever, in normal circumstances, ever, would have been exposed to yours, or would have ever known Karen, or wouldn't have ever done any of this stuff, And so
the beauty of our careers, the freedom. We worked in an office 9 to 5 for 40 years at the same company. I would kill myself. That would be just terrible. But it's the unknown. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Maybe I've quit so many times and discussed, and well, listen, I can't get any press now for this. I can't. What's the point if nobody sees it? What's the point? Things just fall through. And every time, and then I look at the email, and, oh, look at this. They want to put up a billboard in Times Square. Oh, they want to do, they want you on the show. or they want, the show. And there's always something at the last minute.
Yeah, no,
And it's different, something different.
and I think that's one thing that has really prepared me for being an artist was my mental health background, because I've always been light on my feet and can change direction in a second, in a heartbeat, to deal with a crisis here and then juggle something else there. And that's really the life, the life of an artist.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Well, Julian is going to get on us in a second. How would you, what do you want to say or pitch or whatever
Well, you can always
before
go
we
to
say goodbye?
Sure, go to my website, go to artandresponse.com, and then from there you could go to Democracy's Last Stand. But no matter what you do, vote. That's
Absolutely.
vote while you can, while it still probably counts.
And not like the Trump don't vote twice. Hey, Julian, anything else?
Thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I mean, this is
been fun.
With time zones and all kinds of things, particularly nowadays.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed now.
Yeah.
I got my pajamas on the bottom. You can't see it.
That's right. I remember hearing something about kids going to Zoom class in their pajamas, and some teacher making them dress like they would dress to go to school, even though that they were going to do it virtually.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
We can.
Thank you both very much. Thank you, Michael. You were fantastic. And Clint, you were on it today. You were on fire today, sir.
All right. Hold on. Let me stop the broadcast, unless you guys want to talk a little more. Anything else you want to say before I stop it?
Yeah, I think we're
Yep.
We're
if I
done.
say anything else, I'll probably get myself in trouble.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on a second. Let me hit that stop.